Welcome to Markigy, the science of marketing strategy, a bi-weekly podcast where all the cool marketers discuss their favorite marketing strategies, study by study. On this show, we feature marketing risk takers who believe long-term wins for the customer equal long-term wins for the business too. How? Human-led marketing, the combination of where science, creativity, and strategy meet, or as we also like to call it, Markigy. Let's break down the marketing trends, myths, and methodologies together. I'm your host, Leanne Dow-Weimer. Let's go. Good morning. This is Leanne Dow-Weimer with Markigy. I'm joined today with Julia from Hype Cycle, and she's just so amazing. She has brought together people for coaching, for games, to build a community, and we're lucky to have her join us. Julia, tell us more about you and your background and what you've had going on.
Excited to be here, Leanne. My background is marketing. Ta-da! I've spent 10 years working in the industry in different sales tech companies. So all of the projects that normally, marketers are not excited about, I was pretty much excited for. So it's all data integration, revenue intelligence platforms, stuff like that. And I'm particularly passionate about early stage companies because of the professional possibilities that they give us and the level of, learning that you can get from there. So now I'm a founder of a community, Hype Cycle, that half of our industry can't pronounce, triple C's kind of thing. And we're also about to release, as of now, a platform called Skill Exchange. So it's a product that was a pretty much logical continuation of that project. And I also run a go-to-market mag. And
I mean, you're a very busy lady, and I'm so thankful that you carved out time. And from my sneak peek at the Hard Skill Exchange, I'm really excited about seeing that come out and be released. I think it's going to be pretty amazing. When you were kind of thinking of putting these things together, what was your kind of big motivator or thought or insight that made you really leap forward in action? What was kind of the precipice or catalyst?
Yeah, the catalyst was a company pain, and the pain was really obvious. They couldn't sell the product. So the product was way ahead of the market readiness. And 5 years ago, people started to buy, actually spending money on sales engagement. It sounds crazy now, but back at the time, SalesLoft and Outreach were leading the trend. And it was, huge branding work, different content work, and influencers. But essentially, if you would talk to different analysts, you'll see that the CROs, the CMOs, the CEOs were not spending money on it. So that was quite, tricky, how the market positions market readiness and what market readiness actually is.
Yeah, and that makes a really big deal about whether or not you get your deals to go through or even get past that barrier call. So I definitely see the value in needing to get that type of positioning and push, really. So kind of talk me through how you did it. What happened next?
Yeah, and basically I had this crazy KPI as a marketer to drive crazy amount of leads and, very fast. Impossible is nothing. And obviously with not a crazy rich budget to do so. And it was a fun time because also live events started to sort of dry up because of the COVID situation and stuff. And I decided to launch a community. A community back then meant, something crazy because there were only 2-3 communities in B2B. And I'm talking about legitimate communities, not just email list. So obviously Revenue Collective, and it seems quite seemed quite impossible to, oh my God, I'm going to launch this like little thing, like, and people have revenue collective and sales hacker. Kind of the pressure was on, but I did it, and I had an amazing team. I hired the best sales leader, to my knowledge, in cold calling, Justin Michael, to represent it, to be the face of it. And it all came from this research when I actually took the time as a marketer and went to my customer success team, to my sales team, to my CEO, and try to get some happy accounts, unsatisfied accounts, potential targets, and like our marketing kind of a pipeline, just to understand and actually talk to these people, build a relationship with them. It's not like one-time talk. I had no clue how to do market research, or like meaning like a customer kind of research, and like I didn't follow any framework. But what I try to do is just to not sound creepy, and like not to turn it into, kind of a interrogation. And so we just casually connected, like our our conversation a couple of days ago. Hey, what you working on? This and that. And I saw a trend that people were really interested in cold calling, but at the same time, the industry presented it as like, it was kind of a thing of yesterday, and no one was talking about it. There were no cold calling competitions, events, nothing. And so I just picked up this trend. I hired Justin, and I'm a huge believer in participatory marketing. When you have basically when you take your customers and make them the center of the event, versus your leaders and board and MCs, VCs, and all this stuff. So I took these customers, and some influencers, methodology authors, CEOs, and make them compete in a cold calling competition live with a dialer. And yeah, I just like, we had Aaron Ross competing with Gong SDRs. It was super crazy. And it was super viral too. We did cameos when no one was doing it. And so, yeah, I just started a trend, and I'll stop here to not.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much fun. And I think that, there's a couple things that I want to highlight about what you just said. Is one, you just talk to people in a non-creepy interrogation manner, right? Like we spend so much time overcomplicating things, but when you approach people as a person, like that's how you build relationships. You take away that like facade of like job titles, of, company representatives and all of these things, and you just have a conversation. And I love science. I love market research. I love so many things. But at the end of the day, if you wait until you have like a sterile like list and a survey and these things, is that you're getting insights, but they're not as rich and deep as if you lose all the nuance. And you mentioned it in one of our conversations, something like a large volume of people. And that's so powerful. And that's, to me, that's why you're able to pick up this trend, is because when you start talking to that volume of people as humans, like it becomes really obvious what's going on. And another thing I want to highlight is, I remember when I was in a position and I had to be the one doing cold calls, and there just wasn't that much information about it. And this was, maybe 10 years ago. So it's definitely changed. But the only advice I got was, oh, well, you're a woman, so people think you're less threatening, so they're less likely to hang up on you. And then because I was calling within a region that had a regional accent, of which my accent did not match, I was told to try to copy that accent and mirror them, because they did not like Californian accents. And so that was all the guidance I got. And I remember being a young professional, just trying to do my best, and definitely not like being hung up on, or the occasional angry, uh, you know, in person that was like, I don't know how you got my number. Well, sir, you gave it to us. But those type of interactions that give cold calling that intimidating factor.
I love what you're saying, Leanne. Actually, what you brought up with a, zero information kind of thing, and the task that you have to accomplish, or like a goal that you have to achieve now, and the pressure. And which is the only piece of advice within the company, like, imitate the accent. I mean, well, thank you. But it's not going to help. And so that what actually drove the inspiration to create Hype Cycle and to create Hard Skill Exchange. I'm really passionate about the letter and the vision of it, because like the way we are, like what we are studying, I don't know about yourself, but I learned just marketing by doing it. I don't know, like in all of my friends that have the professional degrees, and no, I'm a professional interpreter, so I speak 5 languages. I'm never talking about it almost, and I'm never like actually using it. I probably actively studied for a year, and then I just like submitted tasks and just my master's work. So that I don't see like the necessity to devote legitimately 5 years to going to college daily, and just, I like, for what? Like, how much do you have to listen from people who are just reading the same lecture and they're not interpreters themselves? So with Hard Skill Exchange, the idea is to really bring executives, to bring top practitioners from the industry, the ones who are not, hyped up on LinkedIn, but who are like 4X, President's Club kind of people, and to enable an environment where you could drill a skill that you choose to drill. So you could drill cold calling, and just SMM, and just like freaking going to market. And it, like, the whole vision is to break the silos and to break the borders and this like stupid kind of classification that if I'm an executive, I only need to focus on strategy. And if I'm like, I hate it in our industry, because as an executive, you have to know how to freaking do social media marketing. I'm sorry, but that's a reality. And it's really sad to see that majority of the most talented and genius people that I know in the industry, like, they're not followed on LinkedIn, and they get 3 likes. And, like, people who have no content, they have thousands of likes. So it's, I mean, you can hate social media and just, be angry and refuse like opening your mind to it. But well, it's not a low level skill, or whatever you define it.
I agree. I think that I understand both sides of it, right? So starting earlier with one of your points about like higher education, is that I think that there are schools and there are times and places where higher education can benefit you, but whether or not it's a gatekeeper is a different story. So we agree there for sure. One of the biggest things that helped me when I was doing my formal education was changing the way I interpreted the world. And that was on me to do, right? They can't teach that. They can't make you do it. And I think that that's one of the biggest benefits that you can get if you are intentional about what you're there to do. And for my master's, I wasn't, I was in my late 20s. So, we like to pretend that most of my brain was kind of developed by then. But, and I was able to do that with coming from a science background, which teaches you nothing about business, no clue. to learning about all aspects of it. And I think that once I started understanding the machinations and inner workings of it and finance and things like that, was that I really needed to know those things in order to be successful at any trade or any industry or any vertical that I was going to be in. And I still think that marketers need to know more about finance, but that's a different soapbox, and that you don't need a college degree to do. You just need to set aside time to intentionally study it. But the other part about it was that LinkedIn and social media is definitely no longer a low level skill. It is a higher stakes game. And, it's wrapped up. It can do so much good for a business, but it can also, we've seen it, it can tank your business immediately if you do it wrong. And so I see a lot of CEOs that when I was ghostwriting for like about a year ago, a lot for LinkedIn, is I saw them not know what to say, not know how to say it, and not have time to dedicate to doing it on a recurring basis. And from there, my advice was always like, look, even if you don't want to post, you need to participate. And they didn't know how to comment. They didn't know like what to say on someone's thing or how to add value. And they were just so unfamiliar with how social media works and all these things. And, I definitely see that as one of the things that shifted, just like marketers needing to know finance, is that leadership needs to understand or have someone that can explain to them quickly and concisely how these different channels and tactics impact everything.
100%. I love your point about marketers who need to know how finance works. But, I want to take it even further, Leanne, because marketers need to know how everything works. And everything is knowing is not enough. And knowing is worth nothing if you're not practicing it. So marketers need to decide that they need finance. If they don't make this decision, and this decision is made for them by someone above them, it will never work. And that's the flaw of B2B, because I have experience of marketing B2C products, B2B products, and the difference is tremendous. In B2B marketing, it's all ghostwriting and events. Really. I mean, running ads, okay. We call it account-based, whatever. But it's still, the creativity is just, it's not happening. Now it's a little bit better than it used to be, but it's still not it can't even touch B2C elements. So, 2 years ago, we launched this project, Hype Cycle, and the whole vision is to bring this T-shaped marketing approach where it's, the premise. So you need to know, we have the letter T, and we need to know SEO and ads, or you choose whatever marketing elements you're going to use in, and then everything else is sort of complementary. But we took it to go to market. So you need to know product, and you need to know CS and finance and design. Because again, I can't overemphasize it, but your design is why I noticed your podcast. It's basic aesthetics that lacks in B2B, and it killed me. Because if you look at the websites and they're ridiculous, come on, you have millions. Why can't you invest? Or why don't you have the taste to do so? To just make the product visually appealing, to make it I don't know, usable.
It's the difference between a product that I'm excited to use and that I'm yes, this little bit of oh, this is pretty, but not, it's just at some point, ugly aesthetics are offensive. and it just irritates you to use it. And I'm not gonna throw any certain old school types of spreadsheets under the bus, but I think we can all imagine a certain platform that we're all probably very familiar with, and it's rectangle hard corners on everything, and it's old school, and it's evolved, but there's ways to just make it like delightful to use, and then you'll get more stickiness, and then you'll get more revenue, and then you'll get, all these business objectives that you're after. And I think that it's from fear. Corporate speak is corporate speak because everyone's afraid to use actual words that have emotional things, and it turns into almost like corporate passive aggressiveness, and now we have corporate passive aggressive marketing. Like, no, just be cool, be fun, like it won't hurt you. I promise. Like, and I think that it comes back to really knowing your audience and market research and having conversations with actual humans. um if you're marketing to everyone, you're going to be a lot more afraid to have a certain style of humor or a certain style of aesthetic. You're like, oh, but I don't know if this is going to appeal to this group. Well, test it, or maybe say the people that fit our product and fit our company and our ethos and our mission and our brand and all of this are people that would enjoy this, and just take a stand on something.
100%. I think that, everyone in B2B really has to read about stoicism, and at least to read about it, not to mention practicing it. And the reason being is that I feel that we live in some kind of a fantasy world where you go to, so say with go-to-market, simple example, like 2 years ago, the only person was talking about go-to-market in our industry was Mark Roberge, no one else. Stage to capital, go-to-market, and 3 blog posts, to my knowledge. That's all. And so, like, there's this book, Nimchinski, Customers, Company, Competitors. That's the like founding blocks of go-to-market. That's why we have triple C's in the name of our project. He basically invented it and laid the foundation. It's a Japanese author. It's a framework, and it teaches you to think about, your product through 3 lenses. And where I'm going with this is what's happening now in the industry. They say, okay, like there's go-to-market games. There's like everyone gradually started to use go-to-market, and now you're going to every other LinkedIn profile, and everyone is a go-to-market leader. But in reality, they are SDRs. Like, wow, that's quite of a stretch. So I have messages from different, sales leaders asking me, wow, like I was practicing go-to-market for 20 years, but like I need a book, a framework so that I can market it. And I'm like, well, you weren't practicing go-to-market, you're practicing sales, and sales is not go-to-market. It's a piece of it. So that's the kind of stoicism approach that I'm talking about. When you see reality as is, and you're not imagining it or over marketing it. Curious if you notice, like it was learning by doing kind of thing is the same premise, because we tend to, to put all the badges, like, again, I'm like, I have nothing against SDRs. It's just like the persona that I'm most familiar with lately, because I was doing a ton of market research, like specifically devoted to that. But they are all like, they all have this CRO school certificate, Leanne. I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Like, why do you even invest the time being an SDR to like solve a CRO problem? Like, it's not what you do. Like, maybe you should figure out how to get meetings in a recession and how to drive conversations that actually convert into deals. So there's a huge gap between like the courses, the knowledge that people throw at us. And I'm not even mentioning the, SEO generic content that we read online. And that real need that you need to solve today. I don't want to even touch the customer success kind of element, because every time when I'm hearing about like being customer centric, Leanne, I just get like dumb chills. Is you start to listen about it, people talk about it for hours, how important it is, customer obsession, customer centricity, all sorts of, imaginary frameworks. But there is no like practical way of like, okay, what do I do to actually like be customer centric? Like, what's the, what's the methodology?
Yeah. Like what's the conversation? What's the next steps?
Exactly. Yep.
What are the tasks associated with the strategy? And I think that connection between the on the ground, on foot type of day-to-day activities with that like 3,000 foot view, 30,000, however far up in the sky we're going today, but matching the strategy to actionable items and saying, this is what the day-to-day life in your job looks like. This is when you make a call, you say X, Y, and Z, you listen, you do X, Y, and Z, and that hand holding, if you will, but it's not hand holding, it's guidance, it's training, it's actionable things that make customer centric a real life like reality. It's not just a buzzword that we're putting in our marketing anymore. When, during the call, you act a certain way that actually is open to supporting the customer's goals, needs, wants, desires, personalities, and just that white glove treatment, because that's what it should be, right? If you go into Ritz-Carlton or, another one of those like higher level hotels, they are customer centric because what do? They know your name when you check in, or if you stay with them repeatedly, they, mention it, or, there's different actions that they do or things that they include in their room. And yeah, it's for a more luxurious price point, but there are differences in the tactics, in the tasks, in the how that make it so that they have the proof behind what they're doing. And that's what B2B needs. Is maybe, just slapping on customer concierge instead of customer success. Like, that's that really what we're doing? Like, is that real life? Like, what is the difference? And, terminology matters, but so does what happens when that phone gets picked up.
Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I feel like all of the problems in generally B2B, B2C, whatever the motion is, are caused by founders, and they start with founders. And excuse me, it's not the VCs. It's your choice to take money early on, or just, to do your homework and to actually A/B test the business model, the need, and, the relevance for the market condition now. And the problem starts when founders create solutions for themselves, in PowerPoint. And then they hire a ton of people because they raise money fast to sell that fantasy, to the world. And they fire people every year or two. So with customer centricity, like Apple as an example, I'm reading the biography of Steve Jobs, and what fascinates me is that people tend to think that like Steve was the person who, brought the iPhone because he was the visionary, and he told the market that, hey, you need it. Unfortunately, it wasn't done that way. And luckily, Apple exists without Steve Jobs, especially with the latest release of the AR glasses. I mean, the innovation is there, just takes more time. And customer centricity, like Apple is the most customer centric company in the world. And I know people that work there, and they're crazy about doing market research. They are crazy about A/B tests and everything else. You just don't notice it. You just don't know that the person who is talking to you represents a company. You just don't know that you are part of an A/B test. So the goal of a company is to create a seamless experience for the end user, like really like native, not creepy, to continue what we began with, where you just feel natural to share the problems that you face in the market, and the company is supposed to solve and speak to those problems with their products and services.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's a pretty big hallmark of customer centricity, is that the customer, the end user, doesn't know that that's part of what's happening. It's natural, it's organic, it's maybe manufactured organic, but it's still protected from being that sterile. Did you click on a button? Did you, the over scientification, it's just even a word, we're just making up words, but that overdone part of it. And I'm excited to see the future of marketing and sales be one where people really follow through on being customer centric, and they really are doing the research, and they really are picking up the phone and getting those interactions, and having the confidence to maybe go off script in a framework that's still on script, if that makes sense. So we know that those things create long-term value, right? Because otherwise Apple just wouldn't exist, or otherwise, all of these things wouldn't happen. We know that delighted customers bring referrals, and that they don't quit your company. Like they don't say like, oh, this is not for me anymore. But what are some other things about when doing, like, I mean, if I was going to talk about like the strategies that we've pulled out, we've pulled out being truly customer centric. We've pulled out what GTM really means and the difference between sales and GTM. We've pulled out a couple things here, but when do you think, let's say there's a founder and they're early stage, when do you think it's too soon for them to put into action some of the things that you talked about, or too late?
Well, I think that it's just, I'm trying to put it in a very light way, but I don't think that everyone should become a founder. And I definitely don't think that you should become a founder just for the sake of being a founder. So before becoming a founder, you just have to actually think 10 times, because people tend to think that it's fun and you get, I don't know, all of the financial benefits and the creativity and the freedom and, all the things in the world. But this concept is overly romanticized and, again, just market it. Marketing is a very dangerous kind of thing now. We have marketing wars. The situation that is happening with Russia and Ukraine and all of this madness, it's a marketing war. We have oceans and, full of trash and all the disasters. It's also because of freaking shitty marketing and bad founders that invent stuff that people don't use and need, but we market it well. So being a marketer, you have to think what's your market? And it's quite dystopian to this problem will never be solved. So it's just by design impossible, because there are people, like it's Star Wars kind of thing, right? So yeah.
I think that you have some really great advice about really that introspection before you become a founder. Does the world need this, or do I need this? There's a meme that I saw, and I hate to say that, I lurk on Reddit sometimes, but there's a meme that says, should you be a founder or should you just go to therapy? And it's brutal, it's harsh, it's rude, but at the same time, I have assisted founders that weren't ready to be founders. They were overwhelmed. They were stressed out. They were working more than they humanly should. They weren't able to see their families. And, the fairy tale is that you do that for 5 years and then you get some millions of dollars payout. But that's a fairy tale. That doesn't always happen. And the other thing that happens that is actually quite frequent is that people blow through their savings. They blow through their retirement. They mortgage their house, second mortgage, or they go into debt, and then they don't have a way to earn back the things because they jumped into it too quickly. And I think that that's when you start to see the multiple time founders, and that they approach things differently than a first time founder. And, I love this concept that I call the learning velocity. And basically it's that, you start in the bottom and then you slowly learn stuff. But if you're a multiple time founder, you're not starting in that bottom 0. You're starting higher up because you've already learned the lessons. And, to connect that with Hype Cycle and GTM games and HSE is that when you're mentored or you have these practice rounds or you have these experiences where you're guided by someone else, you aren't starting at 0. You aren't staying, growing, little bit by little bit by little bit. You are, but you're also going to get exponential growth more intentionally in the direction you're trying to go to when you take, a different approach than the one you took last time, instead of just repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah, so much to unpack here. So yeah, like before launching Hype Cycle, I actually wasn't supposed to launch it with Justin. I had a friend of mine, and as a scientist, you understand that there's really philosophy and mathematics in this world, and everything else is just about in this intersection of different disciplines and that the way the other subject matters has been created. So I was really inspired by this idea. And as an example, sales and marketing, I really felt this pain and I wanted them to walk a mile in each other's shoes just to hey, it's crazy that we marketers don't talk to customers. It's crazy that you sellers don't even know how, data science work. We need to create this intersection. It was so obvious to me 2 years ago, but the only person who understood me was Mary Shea and analyst from Forrester, it's just, and the industry wasn't ready. They were like, why? I don't get it. And there was one more person that friend of mine, she was really inspired. She's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's roll. And so we were working full-time jobs, and I was a founder inside of another company, entrepreneur, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was ready to leave that to the company and to start this new thing on my own. And we got our first sponsorship deal, the branding and everything. And I remember it was the time to actually execute, 2 days before, we were supposed to show up and present the results. And she messaged me and she's like, Julie, I hate to do that, but I can't be always on like you. I feel that, it's unfair that you devote all of your time to this and I devote only 10%. I can work my job and I can do this, after hours. And at the time I hated it. It was really hard for me because I was on the spot and I had to basically perform for 2 people at the last minute. But then I was grateful that it happened timely, because that led me to think who is the person that is even crazier than me? Who can pull it off?
Right. Who, and that's so hard to do, that difficult conversation where she was real and she's like, look, this is this. But at the end of the day, I respect people that have those difficult moments so much more than the ones that try to fake it. So I emphasize what a hard position and hard few days, but look where it's led you. So yeah, you found someone that matched your energy and that matched your drive and your ambition and your insights. What happened next?
It's just crazy because Justin represents sales, and first he rejected me. He was like, hey, no, let's do cold calling. I don't really get it. Sales, marketing, frustrating, what? But then I showed him the design, and I'm a design freak, so I work with different designers, and we have hundreds of iterations, and then it's finally nailed, and I'm showing him the product, and he's like, yeah, I'm in. So yeah,
Awesome.
to the point of aesthetics in the beginning, you have to, as a marketer, I think that the biggest flaw that is happening in SaaS and B2B especially is that we don't have any control over the product. Even if there is like product marketing, and it would be really logical to have some kind of control, but your role is to communicate the product, not to actually, bring insight and market research to it. So,
I mean, in product marketing, you're supposed to be able to, but it does, does
it happen?
It's a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale. And that's one of the hardest things about, leaving that warm, fuzzy land of education into the reality of your day-to-day jobs, is that there's a lot of fairy tales we were told.
Turns out.
There's a lot of them. But once you start to pull back the covers, you get a better view, and it's the people that still care, that still want to see it done the right way, that still, have that push to, I know that this will make us more money, we need to do it. Those are the ones that end up as Apple. Those are the ones that end up as Salesforce. It's when you let no become no, and you let bad practice infiltrate and remain, that's where you start to turn the culture away from, what your North Star is said to be, and into just a direction. As far as the future of marketing, what do you think you want to see? Like, where do you think it should go, and where do you think it is going?
Apple AR goggles. Yeah, I'll be really brief. I'm really excited about this one. We are all quiet about Zuckerberg and him like burning billions, and like he wasn't able to deliver it. He had all the money, and that's again another myth that if you have the money, you have the product. Nope. And you have the best people, and nope. But Apple did it, and yeah, really super excited for this one. It's the real next step for marketing of interactivity that we all seek and really want. Marketing became too much static. Like it just really feels like, the Windows 98 to me kind of thing, like ads and everything. We're not evolving. There's nothing new. And the reason why it's happening, because there wasn't a new media to do so. Excuse me, but B2B and TikTok and, like Instagram, it's fine, but it's not like revolutionary. It's just like everyone was telling me like, yeah, you should do a TikTok and you will get deals and like this and that. Really? I mean, it's a nice thing to try to A/B test, whatever, but I'm sorry, we won't close like, a Fortune 500 deal out of TikTok. Like that's the reality.
I mean, it's going to where your people are in context of what they're there to do. If I am scrolling through TikTok and I see some cool thing on how to use Excel better, I'm going to bookmark it and scroll past. And how many times am I actually coming back to the things I've bookmarked?
Never, Leanne. I'm so
not.
glad that you brought it up. Never.
I'm not. And I want to be that person. I aspire to be that person. That's bookmarks moved on. It's just how it goes. And I love TikTok, and I definitely get a lot of entertainment from, businesses on TikTok, and even some B2C ones that are very funny and am I using Duolingo because I think the Duolingo owl like has like fire comments? No, I'm still not. I love it. I'm entertained by it, but I'm still not adopting their product. Now, do I think that I would want to work as that marketer and have like their witty comebacks? Absolutely. Please. Like I have an Instagram account just so I can make the stupid puns that I want to say that I can't say for a corporation. Like it's why it exists. But I agree that there's a lot of static and there's a lot of noise. And I'm really excited to see where the AR lenses go, because another thing that we've seen is, we saw smartwatches try to be live. We saw like an attempt, and then they quickly died. And, we even saw this with hybrid cars. We saw like hybrid, like electric cars be like a thing. And then they just didn't get adopted enough. And then there was a retry. And it's always these retries that, a different company does. And actually, this will probably be the second time it's Apple, because Apple was like, hey, look, it's an Apple Watch. You actually want this now. And so hopefully the AR lenses are going to be you actually want this now. I'm excited to see what happens there. And then, we're getting towards the end of our time together. So I've got to ask you the question that is probably the hardest to answer is, when people come to you and they're asking you questions, what is a question they should ask you, but they don't? So they might ask you like everything around it, and you're like, no, this is what you really need to be asking me. What kind of things might that include?
A hard one. I think that like the question, what do you do? Should be complemented. What do you do to become better? Because we're focused on reading, we're focused on consumption, but we're not focused on the output. And the best thing that like you can ask, and it, not only me, but anyone really, what do you do to become better?
I love it. If you're a person that's continually trying to be better and you meet someone that just doesn't care, it'll help you know, right? They'll be like, I relax on the weekends. Actually, that is helping you become better. So that's a good thing to know.
That's how, the series of books, like don't give an F or how to not give an F. Like that's kind of, saw like 10 books like that in a bookstore. So that's how they are born.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I love that question. I'm going to steal that. I'm adding it to my list of questions to steal now. That's really what this podcast turns into, like a gathering, a hoarding of good questions. But I appreciate you so much and the time that you spent with me. If someone wants to reach out to you, or they have questions, or they want to like become a part of what you're doing, how would they do that?
Best way to do it is to just go to hardscale.exchange and to become better today by practicing your skills with the best people in this industry, the people that you probably never heard of, maybe some of them, but they're actually crushing it in, the best companies in this world, from F500 to like all the fastest growing startups like Gong and HubSpot. And it's really exciting. So if you want to practice a skill and stop talking about it, go ahead.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Well, thank you again. And if anyone wants to leave a review, maybe like or subscribe, I would always appreciate that. And if you have questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email info@Markigy, markigy.com. Thanks. You've been listening to Markigy, the science of marketing strategy. If any of the strategies we talked about today inspired you to learn more, try them. Remember, the perfect strategy doesn't exist, only the one that gets done. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast player to make sure that you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. Until next time.